so we'll get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Madison Myrick, Clinical Director and Clinical Supervisor at Smile Therapy Services. We have a really great topic that I will allow Serena Johnson and Freedom to get into a bit later. But just to give you some background about Smile Therapy Services, we are a mental health therapy agency in Washington, D.C., and we service children and families, making sure that we're addressing trauma, just everything under the sun in terms of everything mental health. So we're really glad to be focusing on the discussion today around suicide prevention. And I will let Freedom introduce herself next.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We are excited to get into this topic with you all. And so my name is Freedom. I'm a school-based therapist with Smile, and the school that I am working with is Friendship Southeast Elementary and Middle School. And next, the lovely Sarita will introduce herself.
Hello, thank you, Freedom. I am Serena Johnson. I'm also a school-based therapist working with the Washington Leadership Academy. And thank you for having us. I'm looking forward to presenting all of this information for you all today. So I need to share my screen. Oh. All right. So we did our introduction. Okay. And so just a little icebreaker. I would like for you all to share how you're feeling. You can put a little emoji in the chat just to do a little check-in before we get started, just to, share how we are all doing on this lovely Thursday. All right, so Madison said good. Beth said relaxed and excited. Christy said sleepy, fantastic, great, good. Grateful, I like that word. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to share? Give you guys one more minute. Blessed. Okay. So here's Freedom. She's going to go over the agenda for today.
Yes, so we are going to talk about depression and suicide, as you all know. And we're going to define depression. We're going to talk about how it impacts different demographics, and then how the pandemic has impacted it. Then we're going to define suicide, and then talk about suicide as well as the ways that different people are impacted by it, and the ways that, unfortunately, the pandemic is impacting suicide. We also wanted to talk about pressures that different people can feel in society. So we wanted to talk about how Black women can feel, and then also public figures. And then we wanted to encourage everybody, because we don't want people feeling sad after this. But we definitely want to uplift and give you all resources. So that will be the end. And then Sarita is going to be saying our group norms.
All right, so just housekeeping before we get started. All right, so we want to allow this to be an open, safe space. So there, for people to share their stories. It's like Freedom said, this is a difficult topic to discuss. So we want to allow individuals to feel no judgment. Also, be attentive and engaged. If you feel more comfortable using the chat box, we have someone watching that. And then there are some icons and reactions where you can raise your hand, you can clap, utilize those as well. And then also provide support and empathize with each other as, people feel the urge or open to share about, their experiences. And then also utilizing I statements, I feel, I think, I believe. And then also we want you guys to know that it's okay to feel uncomfortable. This is a difficult topic, so we know that this is, possibly will make people uncomfortable. And so we want to allow you guys to feel okay to be uncomfortable during this time. All right, so Freedom will start. She'll discuss depression.
So depression, as some of us, I know the word depression is very common, but some little facts that people might not necessarily talk about is that depression can impact your everyday function with decreasing your interest in different activities. So if you normally like to maybe watch Netflix or go on a walk, then you might not necessarily be as likely to do that if you're feeling depressed. It can also just cause extreme feelings of sadness, and it can just impact your ability to work, and then just your ability to function at home. So next slide, please. So some of the symptoms of depression, some things to look out for if you think you might be depressed or someone that might be depressed, is changes of appetite, feeling worthless or guilty, thinking about suicide, which we'll be covering later, and then feeling sad or just in a depressed mood, like a fatigue mood. So if this lasts for roughly 2 weeks, that's when you really just want to be more aware and reach out for help, use your resources, which we will definitely talk about later in this presentation. And these are some more symptoms too. So we also wanted to talk about the way that depression impacts different demographics. So with males, depression can manifest itself as the person might become more aggressive or more angry. Unfortunately, society doesn't really give males, as we know, just that space to express emotions. And so that can lead to them more likely being angry or irritable. And they can also be loss of interest in work, just like we talked about earlier, hobbies, that kind of thing, and also substance abuse. With females, depression can a lot of times come out as more of a hormonal impact with emotions, feeling guilty, excessive sleep, things like that. And then also pregnancy, menopause, menstruation. So that's something that can also impact depression. Then we wanted to talk about teens, how with teenagers, they can have physical symptoms with depression. Really anyone can, but with teenagers, they can sometimes get headaches and stomach aches. So if that's like a new thing for them, that's something to look out for. And then also just agitation and things like that. With children, unfortunately, we know that with kids, a lot of times, they're looking at the screen a lot. Well, just everyone in general. But with them having virtual learning, that can really impact the way that they feel, maybe feeling hopeless or depressed, feeling sad. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some things that they can do in the virtual environment that can help with that as well. So next slide, please. Thank you. So we want to look at this graph, and as you can see, it looks at different genders, ages, and races and ethnicities, and it shows just the different percentages of depression. So if you look at the gender area, it shows that females are a lot higher than males, but unfortunately, as we talked about earlier, males aren't as comfortable expressing symptoms of depression. So that number is probably a lot higher, but we just don't know that. We don't know the number for sure because of the lack of space for men to feel safe to express that. But that's something that we all have the power to change. So thank you for coming to this presentation, because you coming is a step in the right direction. But we're sure, you all are probably already doing that. But thank you for continuing to bring awareness to that issue. Also, this graph is from 2017 because it is more challenging to find more recent information, but we know that because of the pandemic, 2020, and then now 2021, the numbers are different. But we'll talk about that later in the slide too, in the presentation. about how the pandemic is impacting depression. But as you guys can see with the percentages, there's different ages, like it's showing that teenagers, like the older they are, the more likely they are to get depressed. So we know there's a lot of impacts with like pressure and expectations, but we're going to talk about that in future slides too. So the next slide will be Sarita talking about suicide.
All right, thank you, Freedom. Okay, what is suicide? So the definition is suicide is a death caused by injuring oneself with the intent to die. And a suicide attempt is when someone harms themselves with the intent to end their life, but they do not die as a result of their actions. So when it comes to children and adolescents who may be thinking about suicide, they may make openly suicidal statements, such as, I wish I was dead, or I won't be a problem for you much longer. And sometimes they can make these statements in a joking way or in a nonchalant way, not in a serious way. So all of these statements should always be taken serious because, you never know what people are going through internally. And I also have been reading this book. It's called The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health, and it's by Rita Walker. And the book just basically talks about different coping skills to utilize and mental health and African-American culture and how suicide is perceived. And I thought that this quote that she shared in the book, people who die by suicide do not want to die. They just want their emotional pain to end. So in that moment, emotional pain, as we all can, talk about, emotional pain can be difficult. And so in that moment, you want the emotional pain to end, not necessarily your life, but that emotional pain, we want it to stop. So I thought that was very interesting to read. So here are some of the warning signs for suicidal ideation. So talking about, like I said, talking about wanting to die or kill themselves. I think one of the more important ones to look for is looking for a way to kill themselves or searching online, because at this point you are developing a plan. And you are starting to, create, so you're starting to develop a plan and you're starting to look for ways to commit the suicide. And then also refusing to go to school, lack of motivation, feeling like a burden, you're a burden to others, your increase in alcohol or drug use, acting anxious or agitated, behaving recklessly. That could be seen as using a lot of substances or being promiscuous in females. Also sleeping too much or too little. Withdrawing or isolating yourself. You find yourself in your room more than you normally are. You're giving away your possessions. That's also another important one to look out for, like things that you enjoyed, different clothes or items that you have in your house, family emblems. If you start to see people give those away, that's a warning sign. And also no longer desiring to make future plans. You had the aspirations to go to college, and all of a sudden, you made the statement, I don't want to go to college anymore, or I don't see myself going into college anymore. And also decline in quality of work and decrease in enjoyable activities. Okay, so on to the next. So I see, I can share the book. I could put it in the chat, who the name and the author, the author and the title of the book, if you guys would like. I will do that in a second. So suicide in children. So among younger children, suicide attempts are often impulsive. So they do things without thinking about them. And they also may be associated with feelings of sadness, confusion, anger, or problems with attention and hyperactivity. And also, children are still kind of learning how to express themselves and explore their emotions. So children might draw out their feelings, and it is important allow them to share their narrative on the different, the picture and what it explains to, share their feelings and share what the picture is, explaining or what it is about. And then it also is important to talk about their executive functioning. So an individual's ability to control behavior and self-regulate and problem solve. As a child and also teenagers, they're still developing this, and it's not fully developed until the age of 20 through 25. So, they're still experiencing how to regulate their emotions. So on top of that, they're experiencing suicidal ideation. So it's, really important to also look for those and, have a communication with your child too, so they'll be able to express themselves either through writing or through verbal, when you meet with them. All right, so suicide in teens. So amongst teenagers, suicide attempts may be associated with feelings of stress, self-doubt, pressures to succeed, disappointment, and loss. And for some teens, suicide may appear to be a solution to their problems. So, when it comes to teenagers, they're about to experience life after college. They've been in a brick and mortar school from kindergarten through 12th grade. So what will life be like after high school? That is a lot of pressure and a lot of overwhelming feelings to kind of explore what that will be like. And then also when it comes to frequent methods used by teenagers, they often utilize overdosing on pills or hanging or jumping from high places. And the reason being is because those things are easily accessible and inexpensive. So statistics for suicide. So nationally, the suicide rate increased 25.4% from 1999 to 2016. And like Freedom said, the latest statistics on suicide was from 2018. So suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and also the second leading cause of death for children, adolescents, and young adults. And in nearly 1 of every 8 children between the ages of 6 and 12 has suicidal thoughts. And when it comes to males and females, females may attempt more, but males often succeed more. And reason being is because males use more aggressive ways of suicide, like handguns and hanging, rather than females would use methods like overdosing on pills, which is not, there is a possibility that you can survive from that. All right, so here we have Freedom. She is going to do activity, a breathing technique for you all. So this is our break. So Freedom, go ahead.
So we know that this is a really heavy topic, and we want you all to be feeling encouraged. So we wanted to do some deep breathing. But right now, if you wanted to use the bathroom, get some water, stretch, whatever you need to do, feel free to do that because, this is kind of like in the middle of the presentation. So if you want to put your video off, you can do that too. Feel free to do whatever you need to do. And what we're going to do is some deep breathing. So I'll show you guys too, just so that it's easier to understand. Oh yes, thank you. Sarita just put the info in the chat too, if anyone wants to look it up. Thank you, Sarita. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be breathing in slowly through our nose, and then we're going to be holding in the air in our stomach. And if you want, you can pretend that there's a balloon in your stomach. That might help to give you a visual. But what we're going to do is I'm going to count slowly to 4. And then as I'm counting, you can breathe in slowly and then fill up that pretend balloon in your stomach. Then we're going to hold it. You don't have to hold it for 4 seconds. You can hold it for however long you want. But then we're going to hold it. I'm going to count to 4, and then we're going to slowly release it. And I'm going to count to 4 as we're slowly releasing it. And I'm going to show you guys too, just so that you can see it. So it's going to be breathing in slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm holding it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then slowly releasing it. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to go a little bit slower than that. But that's just I just wanted to show you guys what it's going to be like. So if you could please just sit in a comfortable place if you aren't already, and just go ahead and do whatever you need to do to feel comfortable. And I'm going to turn on some music and we can start. okay. If you would like, go ahead and put your hand on your belly, but you don't have to if you don't want to. And then we're gonna go ahead, when I say go, we're gonna breathe in and I'm gonna count slowly to 4. All right, so ready, set, go. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. Release, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, if you need to like shake and wiggle or anything like that, feel free to do whatever you need to do. And then we're gonna do that one more time. All right, so we're gonna, when I say go, we're gonna start breathing in slowly. All right, ready, set, go. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then release slowly, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so we hope that that has helped you to feel more relaxed. And if you need to do anything else to feel relaxed, do whatever you need to do because we understand this is a very heavy topic. All right, so next, the lovely Sarita is going to share the next slide.
Thank you, Freedom. That was a good little break to finish off this presentation. Thank you for that. Okay. So we found this poem of this guy who shares his perspective and experience with suicide and his family, you know, watching his family go through suicide, ideation, and attempts. I thought it was really powerful, and I just wanted to share this with you all. So let me see if it'll play over here. Oh, perfect.
Rita, you have to optimize the.
Doors.
Can everyone hear?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry about that.
They be like, black suicide is a fable. Only thing black in suicide is those phantom doors. I can still remember the ambulance rushing down the road. I can still remember the paramedics running up the stairs as my sister lay with her arms stretched to God after swallowing close to 20 iron pills. I can still remember hearing my mom screech and cry in the background saying, God, keep her alive, while the paramedics shook her just to keep her coherent as they put her in the ambulance, drove her about 20 minutes to the hospital where they spent 20 minutes pumping her stomach. I can still remember the way my mom screamed. It felt like broken glass to my flesh. It felt like all those childhood dreams that she told me about how people broke her, and all I wanted to do was break them. See, in black families, we identify with trauma, but we don't talk about it later on. Just like we don't talk about my sister at age 23 who almost ran into traffic, and my aunt had to tackle her, tell her, you got a daughter that's worth living for. You have something in this world to embrace what it is. See, black families, we turn our trauma into fairy tales. Say that God was trying to help us through, saying it was the flesh or the demon, or we didn't understand how amazing it is to be alive. See, we don't talk about those things, just like we don't talk about me being 8. As I slowly mixed together my own homemade version of mustard gas, a little bit of bleach, a little bit of ammonia, a little bit of alcohol, the way it felt my lungs ripped from its flesh, tried to breathe and regurgitate all my insides in that moment, opened up a window, tried to breathe out all that pain, poured the rest of that concoction in the toilet, just like black families pour out all their pain. See, I tried to connect to what it is to be alive, but in black families, they'll tell everyone to be quiet, but no one is safe. Tell you it's passed on from generation to generation. That's why we have uncles with wandering hands that touch not only one, but multiple generations, to the point where you're forced to show up at their funeral as to say you are the dirty mark in their existence of life, as to say you still got to be good in your place. And while they mourn this person who touched and made you feel like nothing in this world, see, in black families, we say God is going to make it better. But we never talk about how we can make each other better. We never cry. We never let go of what it is to be inside. We say be quiet and be strong. But what happens when you hear the suicide comments inside your own flesh, when you tell your mom that you want to be here sometimes, but other times you don't, and all your family says the most selfish thing you can do is commit suicide. So all you do is contemplate about keeping them proud, but not breaking yourself in the same time. See, I'm so tired of living under these masks. See, they say we are a proud people. They say we made it through slavery, but sometimes we tattoo our trauma on our skin and call it battle scars, but really they're just open wounds that we dig and pick at each and every day. But I guess until we're ready to talk about it, we'll just be like, black suicide is a fable. Only thing black in suicide is those phantom doors.
So I wanted to allow you guys to share your thoughts on the poem in the chat, just to give you guys a minute or two to, Christy, wow, that was so powerful. Yes, I thought so too, definitely. I love how he kind of broke down his perspective on his family and yes, and his truth, and how he broke down his perspective on the suicide, and you know how he was traumatized, you know, watching others go through that. Yes, we must face the pain, purge to heal. Absolutely. You have to go through it to get through it. Absolutely. All right, give you a few more seconds to share. Okay. All right, so next, okay, so I'm sorry, Madison, go ahead.
I was gonna share out loud, sorry, because I'm typing too slow. I was gonna say that I really liked that he connected how our families and the Black families, like based on suicide, how we also bury our traumas and try to almost like correlated it to suicide. Like we kind of suicide our traumas and put them away and want to hide them and, you know, act like they don't exist or, you know, that they're not living, but they are. So I really like how he connected that because a lot of families do that, especially like with the family member and the uncle. That was really deep.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Madison. All right, so which of these protective factors do you struggle with the most? So I wanted to open the floor. You can unmute yourself or write in the chat. So just wanted to give a little background before we start opening it up for everyone else. So protective factors. So a protective factor is, it lowers the likelihood of a negative outcome. It provides some security or safety for someone to turn to, or it provides resilience for individuals to get through suicidal ideation or depressive symptoms. So the different types of protective factors that there are is parent resilience. Are you able to handle all of the stressors and struggles that, you know, parents often go through when it comes to raising their children? Do you have a positive social connections? Do you have healthy relationships? Do you have people that you can turn to in times of need? Also, do you have the knowledge or awareness of child development and what goes into, you know, increasing a child's social skills and what's needed to express themselves? And also, do you have the social and emotional competence? Are you able to express your emotions effectively? Are you able to identify your emotions effectively? So I wanted to be able to, open the floor and allow others to share what protective factors do you all struggle with the most? Or also, what are some protective factors that you all feel that you have that you don't have to worry about? I would say Like, for example, I feel that, I have a good support system, in times of need. I see Beth, I struggle for asking for support. Definitely, it can be difficult reaching out for help and, asking for help. Also struggling to ask for help. Anyone else would like to share? Okay. All right, so next. Oh, yes, Michelle. Okay, so protective factors, positive coping skills, absolutely, and social support. And also during this time, social distancing during a pandemic, people that we normally, would be around every day, we can't do that. And so it's important to always, keep up those conversations through FaceTime, Zoom, chat boxes to, continue to have those healthy relationships and so positive social connections. And, during this time, definitely difficult, but, we have technology to keep us connected. Absolutely, Latavia, letting people know and thinking I can handle it on your own. You're not alone. You have this wonderful support and in times of need. And then, yeah, so is there anyone else that would like to share or unmute? Okay, so yes, Michelle said having a good support group of family and friends has made it easier to handle such a huge transition. Absolutely. Because we all are going through the transition together. So we're not alone. So next we have Freedom, going over the effects of virtual mental health.
So I'm sure you all probably have heard about virtual fatigue. So we're going to talk a little bit about how, unfortunately, because learning is for the most part done virtually for most of us, for most of the children and students in our lives, that can lead to a lot of anxiety, depression. I've had some clients say that they feel loneliness just because they can't play with their friends during recess or lunch. And so it's a big adjustment, and that can cause children to feel fatigued, anxiety. They might lose interest in like playing video games if that's what they normally do, or if they like to go on TikTok. Like if there's a student that a child or a student that who is losing interest in those things, then it might be because they're virtually fatigued, and that might be also depression. Sometimes students can skip class, or they just don't have motivation just to stay on class. And something that does help with that, if you all haven't heard already, is that there is blue light glasses that you can use to help protect your eyes from the screen. So those are things that you can just find on like Amazon. If you just Google it, you can definitely buy those for kids or adults. And we wanted to ask you all to share if there was any changes that you have been seeing in the children or students in your own life. If you want to go ahead and put your comment in the chat, or raise your hand and we can, if you want to talk, or you could just unmute yourself if you wanted to share too. So whatever you would like to do, if you could just share about any changes that you've seen in any children or students in your life.
I've seen, I know Miss Ryder was sharing some good information about Nevada's cases with suicide. But I've also seen, at least here in this area, and maybe some other areas, kids have access, because they're at home, they have access to things like iPads and other electronics. So they have access to understanding like things such as killing yourself or, harming yourself or harming others just through other virtual like platforms or experiences. So I've learned like a lot of the times kids get in these scenarios too based off their feelings, but also because they might be bored or they feel like no one's going to engage with them. So they result to just being on their phones or their iPads or whatever the case is. And so they're so sucked into that the technology has really led them to understanding a lot of this. And I like what Beth said too, like a lot of energy stored up correlated to not having like that recess, the playgrounds, just other forms of outlets that they can go to that they typically would have just based on the pandemic. So that's something that I noticed.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, thank you for sharing, Beth, about the energy. That's very true. And then Tia, being distracted. Yes, and then lack of supervision. Yeah, with what Madison was saying. So it is, they have a lot of access, as we all know, to a lot of information. Did anybody else want to say anything? No? Okay. All right. And then if we can go to the next slide, please. So we wanted to talk about the pandemic and how that's impacting depression and suicide. As you all can see, as it says on the slide, we're dealing with a lot right now. There's a lot going on with more awareness about racism, even just different situations like politically. We know we had the situation at the Capitol. There's just been a lot going on. And so as a community, we're all, we're here. So we're doing a great job of being resilient. And unfortunately, with all of that stress, sometimes can come symptoms of depression. And we want to definitely be aware of when that's happening in other people and in ourselves. Sadly, when symptoms of depression can become elevated and they get to a higher level, they can sometimes lead to suicidal thoughts and plans. And so that's when we really, for sure, we always want to be looking for resources, but especially when there's suicidal ideation, we definitely want to be very conscious and aware and really look for different resources and support and different outlets. And we will talk about that later in the presentation. So we definitely want you all to feel supported with that. And then unfortunately, there is an increase in substance use just because people, we don't have the normal outlets that we had before where maybe you could go to the gym or plan a trip, things like that. We're obviously very limited in our different outlets, but that doesn't mean we can't get creative. And we are going to talk about that later in the presentation. So next slide, thank you. We also wanted to talk about public figures and just how common depression and suicide is in everyone, including public figures. So as you can see, we have different people that are in the public eye who have dealt with depression or have committed suicide. So as you can see, we have Khalif Browder, who he clearly has been through a lot of trauma. For anyone who maybe hasn't heard his story, he was wrongfully accused, had to deal with a lot of trauma in prison, just a lot of like trauma on trauma on trauma. And he unfortunately committed suicide. And then we have, yes, Ms. Ryder, it is a very sad story. Next, we also were thinking about Robin Williams and how he may look, the opposite of Khalif Browder, and he may have had, from what we know, we don't really know like the details of his life, but from what we know, he also naturally just was born with a different lifestyle and, different privileges, but he also committed suicide. And so we just wanted to highlight the fact that people from all different backgrounds, different socioeconomic status, different ages can really just be impacted, unfortunately, with suicide. And we also wanted to highlight the fact that, as you guys can see, Wayne Brady, we have a picture of him, Robin Williams, Demi Lovato, they're very much figures of entertainment, and they're people that if you're having a long day, you just want to watch something funny, you might watch one of them, or just for entertainment. They're expected to kind of have like a mask of everything's okay. There's a lot of pressure for them to have like an image. And so because of that, that mask, it might be harder to tell sometimes that there is a lot going on beneath the surface. Wayne Brady even shared about how in Hollywood, it's a lot more acceptable for people to talk about substance abuse and maybe being like an alcoholic or addicted to drugs, but not necessarily about mental health. So that's something that, we're really hoping that the stigma is gone. We don't want that stigma there. We want people to know very normal to just feel sad and to just like have, hard times. And so Wayne Brady is doing an awesome job of really trying to make sure that mental health is something that people are, normalizing, and just like emotional wellness is something that is acceptable as a topic. And then same with Demi Lovato. She's on Talkspace. So she's doing her thing with trying to make sure that people know that emotional wellness is important, and that it's something that we can all make a priority. Then as you can see in the center, we have Kate Spade, who she's another one where it's like she had, her career was booming, a lot of great things happening, financially stable, but, unfortunately she didn't have, I don't know the details, but she didn't have protective factors enough to help her to stay alive. So we definitely always want to be careful and just kind of aware of that, because it really doesn't have any limits to who it could impact, depression or suicide. If anyone has any thoughts or anything, feel free to share as well. Okay, and then if not, we can go to.
Okay, yes.
Oh, unfamiliar. Okay, yeah, thank you, Michelle. Yeah, it is very, very sad to hear about his story, because we are definitely, we're wired to be around other people. And so it's very inhumane for people to be in confinement.
And I wanted to add to that too. I don't know if you mentioned this, but Wayne Brady and Demi Lovato are still living. So, like you were saying, she's on Talkspace. She promotes for Talkspace, but they talk about out loud, how they've gotten through their moments of depression or even anxiety. They both mentioned that have led them to have those particular thoughts about suicide.
Yep. So it's great. Not great, but it's getting better with people, using their celebrity status. And we're going to talk about another celebrity figure also later in the presentation. So, yep. Sarita is actually going to be doing the next slide. So you got it, Sarita.
All right, so Taraji B Henson, a local celebrity. She is from DC, if you guys did not know. So during the pandemic, she created a show called Peace of Mind with Taraji, and she's really promoting talking about mental health. And so I thought it was important for her to share her story on when she kind of experienced suicidal ideation. And then also I wanted to point out that it's not just children and adolescents going through depressive symptoms and suicidal ideation. Parents and adults also go through these too. So I wanted to highlight Taraji and share her story. Can you also see as it loads up?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay.
Okay. Let me take you there. So during this pandemic, it's been hard on all of us.
Yes, definitely.
And I had a moment.
Okay.
I had a dark moment. I was in a dark place.
Right.
For a couple of days, I couldn't get out of the bed. I didn't care. That's not me. Then I started having thoughts about ending it. It happened 2 nights in a row. And I purchased a gun not too long ago. and it's in the safe, And I started like, well, if I could go in there right now and just end it all, because I want it to be over. But it's in my head,
Right.
Thought about my son. I said, he's grown. He'll get over it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I just didn't care. I felt myself withdrawing. People were calling me. I wasn't responding. I didn't care. Finally, I'm talking to one of my girlfriends, and I knew I was smart enough to say, I have to say it. Because a part of me was ashamed. I was like, I don't want them to think I'm crazy. I don't want them to, obsess over me or think they got to come and sit on me, because this one will.
Okay.
And so I was like, I don't want to be handicapped, and I feel weird. So one day I just blurted it out to my girlfriend. I just talked. She called me in the morning. I was like, I thought about killing myself like that. Oh my God, I feel so much better.
Right.
I'm not gonna do it now. For me, I'm no professional, but I felt like if I don't say it, then it becomes a plan. And what scared me was that I did it 2 nights in a row.
Okay.
And the thoughts kept coming. Now I started thinking about how. At first it was like, I don't wanna be here. And then I started thinking about going to get the gun. And that's why when I woke up the next morning, I blurted it out, because I felt like after a while it was gonna take over me and it was gonna become a plan, because that's how strong my brain is. Our thoughts, they're that powerful.
It is.
And I wanted to stop before Dr. Green goes into her portion of the video. So before I move on, what are some attributes or strengths that you all see in Taraji? I think she's funny. I think she's strong. What are some, strengths or attributes that you all see in?
I think one thing that you see with Taraji naturally is that she's a people person. And so like some of the other celebrities that you mentioned, she's a person that is always in good spirits, celebrating others. And so it's surprising to see, maybe it might be surprising to most people, that she's had thoughts or even a plan, rather, that she wanted to do that.
Yes, it was a surprise for me too. Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
I see in the chat, some people said grounded, resilience, yes, because she has shared a lot that she's experienced and been through. Kanisha said transparent and helpful. Freedom, very self-aware. Trisha bold and a leader. And Lativia said self-awareness.
Absolutely. And then also I wanted to point out where she kind of, her warning signs, and I'm glad that she was able to recognize them on her own. She started to withdraw. She had, nonstop thoughts about, coming up with, she identified that she had a gun in her house. She started ruminating, like nonstop thoughts about, her suicidal her thoughts. And then also she rationalized with her plan, like, my son is grown, he will be okay. So she was making sure like her loved ones will be okay without her. And then I want Dr. Green to share her part.
Very normal to feel lonely, to not want to do it anymore. There's so many things that we think that are wrong, that are unhealthy, that are absolutely normal. But when you said it, it was probably a very cathartic moment for you, because you took away the shame.
Yep.
And you validated and you normalized it for yourself, especially now where people are isolated, cut off, and you don't have to believe every thought you have.
That's the stuff that wakes me up at night. That's my
Yes.
active brain. Are those mental breakdowns, are they common?
Well, the thing is, the mental breakdown, that's a layman term. So it's not a clinical term. It's not a clinical
Clear
term.
this up, please.
It's sort of like a symptom of something larger. Mental breakdowns are, for the purposes of this conversation, they happen. And I know this is very cliche, but it depends. That's our saying, because it is very true. So what will break you down may not break you down.
Yeah, we talked about that. So Shelly and Tamar both thought about taking their lives.
Logan was the reason why I made that decision.
You thought he would be better without
I
you?
thought in that moment.
And I said, if you love me, then you kill me.
The strong Black woman ideology has become something that has to be achievable rather than aspirational. And that pressure in itself, I think, has created a lot of unrealistic expectations that are both self-imposed and imposed by others. So we also buy into it because that's the one thing that we have. I'm stronger than you.
And that's what I grabbed onto when I enrolled into an HBCU.
Okay.
That was my identity. Because we're the least protected, the least respected.
Yes.
No one cares, no one listens to us. And so now we have this title.
Yes.
Strong Black
Yeah.
woman. Aha!
Yeah.
Now, I got something over you. Exactly.
Something, yeah. And it works. The problem is it works until it doesn't work.
Yes. What are some of the red flags that present themselves when you are on the verge of a breakdown?
Well, I think noticing your triggers, so having episodes when you're not taking calls, you're staying in the bed later, you are starting to get sick of you more and more and more. There's no personal satisfaction. There's a huge detachment from your own personal sense of purpose. And it sometimes can be more debilitating for people who tend to be strong, like they're functional alcoholics. Well, there are people who are functionally, emotionally impaired and continue to go to work every day.
Now, as we wrap up, what?
Okay, so I love Dr. Green. I did some research after I watched this video. So I think the two things that she said that was like really stood out to me was that you don't have to, pay attention or believe every thought that you have. Because there are positive thoughts and there are negative thoughts. So you don't have to believe every thought that you have. You can, say that that's not something that I want to do, or that's not something I believe. And then also something else that she said, so what was the other thing that she said? That being in that, where she started to normalize the plan when she said it aloud, that felt like it was like a cathartic moment for her. And instead of feeling the shame and guilt of being able to say it out loud and being able to reach out to your support system, that was more of a relief rather than the feelings of shame and guilt. And would you, I would like for you guys to share your thoughts on the video. You can unmute yourself or write in the chat how you guys felt what Dr. Green said and, what Taraji said. I see, yes. I like Madison. I like how she broke it down too, like finding your identity at a HBCU, definitely. What are some other thoughts that you guys took away from this video? Absolutely, creating a safe space where Taraji could have be non-judgmental and, express herself. As taking note of your triggers, being able to recognize your triggers, being able to recognize your warning signs. I like that. Yes, absolutely. Everyone is affected by trauma differently. Thank you guys. What's something that's important to me may not be important to someone else. All right, so let me figure out. Okay.
You got this, Sarita.
Okay, thoughts, questions, and reflection. Okay, moving on. So what to do next? Okay, so here are some helpful resources that we have provided for you all. So we have the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and then also we have DBH has an access helpline too, where you can call in if you are experiencing suicidal ideation or depressive symptoms. And then also if you want to, reach out for individual help, we have Smile Therapy Services. You can utilize this email and send your name and number, and someone be contacting you with more information if you would like to seek individual services. And now we'll have Freedom share some helpful tips to get you guys through the stressful moments during this pandemic.
So we just wanted to give you guys just some ideas of things that you can do when you feel like your spirits need to be uplifted. So you can just take some time to self-reflect and think about times in the past when you've overcome hardships. If you want to journal about it and write about it, or even set up some time with friends and family where you all kind of talk about ways that you've overcome different things, that can help. Also making changes to your routine. So if you normally go to a certain grocery store or gas station, maybe trying a different one, just so that you're doing something different. Also, trying to rearrange your furniture or your living space, or just like going to a different area to do your work, that kind of thing. Just switching it up so that you're not just kind of like having a repetitive day, because that's something that a lot of people are experiencing now, is just a lot of repetition. The same, you're in the same place, you're doing the same things because of the quarantine. You can also try looking up new recipes, meal plans, just kind of switching it up, making sure you have something to look forward to. You can create different challenges with loved ones, maybe like healthy living challenges, self-care challenges, things like that. You can take little breaks, like if you want to just do like a break from social media or watching different shows, things like that. You can go ahead and just kind of monitor if you feel like you're getting overwhelmed, and then take a break from it. Making a list of 10 things that you're grateful for. That's something that I know helps me when I feel down. So just thinking about things that you appreciate about your life. Also volunteering virtually, or just thinking about somebody that you know who might need a helping hand. And then another one is fostering an animal. I know with the pandemic, with people being, some people live alone, and so having a pet can be helpful. So maybe fostering an animal. Even if you don't live alone, you could still do that. And Kanisha, you're just saying how you rearrange your bedroom. I see it in the chat. Yeah. Changing out pictures. Oh, that's a good idea. And paintings. I like that idea. So it feels like a whole new room. Yeah. So just doing whatever you need to do with like little things in your everyday life to help you. That's more for simple tips to uplift your spirits, but for more complex things, then that's when, you want to go to therapy, use your protective factors, and just try to really use your support systems as much as you can. Spirituality can help as well. So just kind of thinking about different things that can kind of give you that inspiration. So thank you, Trisha. I see you. Oh, the recipes and cooking. Yeah. Decluttering. Yes. Decluttering, cleaning up your living space. Yeah. Thank you. If anybody else wants to put anything they can, feel free to put it in the chat or just to share. But that is the rest of our presentation. So thank you all for joining.
Yes.
We did want to leave some time for questions. If anybody had any questions or comments or anything like that.
What is something that you guys took away from this presentation? Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, Beth. Oh, thank you.
You are welcome.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Emotional health. Absolutely.
Thanks, Michelle. Yes.
Yes, Beth. That's a good one to take away.
Mhm. No shame, no guilt.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us. Greatly appreciated. How to get the men engaged? That's a great question, Ms. Warren. How to get men engaged? So yes, so men can be very difficult to get engaged when it comes to mental health. I know what men love to work out, and well, I guess some men are, but having those physical challenges with them, and creating a challenge to get them involved and expressing and being able to have conversations while you guys work out to build a connection. Freedom, did you have any suggestions that, how to engage men into mental health?
Maybe even, you might already be doing this for sure, but making sure you normalize anything they might be feeling, because a lot of times they might feel like embarrassed or feel like they're the only person feeling that way. And then just emphasizing like self-compassion, so that if they have any feelings of like shame or guilt, that can replace it. And then maybe just exploring different support systems that they can engage in. So maybe if they want to volunteer more or explore like their spirituality, or think about maybe like taking a class at a community college virtually, just to kind of see if there's a different career change they want to make. So maybe just trying to think of different ways that they, and maybe if they need a mentor, if they think, oh, I want to think about this career path or this spiritual, like, you know, this aspect of spirituality, getting kind of like a mentor can help. And then obviously we talked about therapy. So if they're ready, you know, going to a therapist or joining like a men's group, that type of thing. So just making sure that they feel heard, respected. I know respect is big for men. And then Trisha, she mentioned creating a safe space for them to talk. Yeah, sharing their feelings, making sure they always feel accepted, making sure they know that you're not going to judge them.
And I also think an important thing is like the trust. Do you guys have enough? Is this man or this person trustworthy enough to share how I feel? And also being able to, like Freedom was saying, having that open space and just being allowing them to feel like they are safe and free to speak how they feel. Because I know when it comes to men, it's judgment. So being able to have a safe, open space and being trustworthy, I think is really important.
That's a really good question, because that's a very, unfortunately, you know, that's just a population that doesn't, mental health and emotional wellness, it's not, you know, as socially acceptable for them to talk about it. So thank you for that question. It's a really good question.
And something Christy pinpointed too is sometimes utilizing different, different wording. So maybe not saying mental health, but talking about like their feelings and how they feel, and telling them like it's okay, it's normal. This is
Yes.
your stuff is safe with me. I hope that you trust. Just using different wording. So that's also another way as well. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you everyone for coming. We greatly appreciate your feedback and engagement throughout the presentation.
Thank you, Sarita and Freedom. Great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.